welcome to USA Global TV, home of Talking Heads. And a big shout out to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio out of New York. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and yes, I am in. I am going strong, I think, on hour 4 today. So we are really glad to have you. Our show is the United Kitchens. And here with me is celebrity chef Ricki McKenna. Welcome, Ricki.
Good morning, Dr. Jacalyn.
Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are.
Right. Exactly.
Yes. So we're used to seeing you in your blue. I'm loving the orange. Very attractive.
They're coming over as orange. Wow. It's hot pink in this department, but I love orange. That's funny. Well, that's what happens on TV, I guess.
Yes, it looks, because your pumpkin is there and it looks like similar.
Yeah.
It's like you planned it all out.
I did. Now, actually, yesterday, to be very honest, yesterday I made this recipe and I was cleaning up and doing things, and I happened to decorate my blue coat with some of the food. So it's in the laundry. And so here I am in pink or orange, whatever. It's peach.
Peach. Okay, peach, yes. Well, you know what's nice about that, Ricki? You've got variety in your wardrobe, just like you've got always variety in your recipes and your food.
Absolutely. It's exciting when you can have variety, of course. Yep. Well, I'm delighted to be here, actually. And today, I do have to say one thing, well, a few things. I'm Ricki McKenna. I'm a certified nutritionist for 22 years. I absolutely love food. I have been chefing for, I don't know how long, since I was a little kid. My grandmother started with the cooking, and I have my mom, my dad, my uncles and aunts all cook or did. And actually, my late husband was a wonderful chef, and both of my children are incredible chefs. So it runs in the family, or gallops or something in the family. And I have enjoyed cooking forever. And this is my kitchen. Welcome to Ricki's Kitchen. I'm also the author of something called My Happiness Room, which is a chapter in a collaborative book from the Wellness Universe. And I'm in the process of choosing a cover for my new ebook, which will be out by the end of this year. And it is called Yes, You Can Eat Well and Eat Right, and bring back the joy of cooking. So here I am.
Congratulations, Ricki. That's fantastic.
Yep. And you know the publisher too.
Woo! Mr. Red O'Loughlin, correct?
Absolutely. Yes. He's amazing. Really, truly amazing.
So for anybody out there who is a first-time author who's looking to publish a book, we have a dynamite book coach. His name is Red O'Loughlin, and he actually helped me with my first book, which you can't see because of the green screen, but I published that 2.5 months after I wrote it. I just finished my second book, and I'm on my third book, and all through Red, and all in less than a year. So he is the man. I'll put his contact information in the comments. So Ricki, before we begin, I just want to let our audience know that our beloved friend, Simon McDonald, is not going to be on this show going forward. He has so many other things that he's doing in his work that he doesn't have the time. So we miss him greatly. We hope he'll come back in the future. So today this show is all about Ricki. So I'm going to spotlight you, Ricki, and you go ahead and take it away. I'll be backstage here watching.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jacalyn. And again, welcome to Ricki's Kitchen and the United Kitchens. One of my plans is to find some more chefs or others who want to join me and be united in the kitchens. And so we can continue the show as the United Kitchens. I really love the idea because I always learned a lot from Simon, and I always learn from others. And so welcome to a learning process as well. And today, one of my favorite things is vegetables and fruits. I am an omnivore. I love some meats and I love fish. But today, this is particularly one of my favorite things around the holidays. And I have to say that unfortunately in America, we don't treat pumpkin with the respect that it really deserves. I know that in Australia, a lot of the squash are referred to as pumpkin, but it is a squash in the family of squashes. And it is extremely good for you. And unfortunately, in America, we only get to buy it in the stores, usually between October and December, because of the holidays, between Halloween, where everybody takes it and makes jack-o'-lanterns out of it, and then Thanksgiving, of course, and it's pumpkin pie, and then pumpkin pie, hopefully, for Christmas and the other holidays in December as well. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to take the pumpkin and pair it with some other root vegetables and broccoli for a green, and we're going to roast them. And one of the things I really love, I've already cut this guy in half because I used half of it yesterday, and I'll show you what they come out looking like. So what I'm going to do first is take my pumpkin and cut it, and make sure your knife is sharp when you're doing something like this. As Simon also said, it's a lot easier to work with a sharp knife than it is with a dull knife, and heaven forbid that you cut yourself with a dull knife. It's not fun. It's a lot easier to take things with a sharp knife, and they work better. So I'm cubing all the vegetables. We're starting with the pumpkin, and if you notice, I left the peel on. One of my favorite things as a nutritionist is to tell people, please don't peel, scrub. When it comes to potatoes, when it comes to beets, and if you're in the UK, it's beetroot and sweet potatoes, everything has the skins on and well scrubbed, because much of the vitamins and minerals are in the skins. Now, this recipe calls for approximately 4 cups of pumpkin that's raw, and it's about 116 milliliters raw, and it cooks down to a little more than that in a cup. But I'm going to just cut up the half a pumpkin, and the pumpkin is a pie pumpkin, which unfortunately I've called several places around Houston, which is where I'm located, and they're all out. So I'm going to see if I can find a farm that still has pie pumpkins. They're about anywhere from 1.5, 2.5, 3 pounds, and they were approximately, I guess, not the size of a basketball, but a bit smaller. So whatever I have here is going into my great big bowl, which you'll see in a minute. And it's a little over 2 cups. And I'll get into the nutritional value in a little while, because that's a lot of fun for me. And the reason, not the only reason that I love pumpkin, it is extremely valuable as far as nutritional value goes. But it's also very tasty, and I happen to love it. So we're going to take the sweet potato. I'm cutting off the ends. I did scrub it. And I'm going to cut it into chunks, approximately 1-inch cubes or bite-sized cubes, so that it cooks quicker. And we're just going to chop that up, then add it to the bowl. So we've got pumpkin. We'll have sweet potatoes. We'll have a Yukon Gold. And the reason for the Yukon Gold in particular, as a potato goes, is because the skins are thinner and sweeter. And so that will go in very easily, so we don't have to peel. As I said, scrub rather than peel. So here's our Yukon Gold. And I'm going to cut that into fourths first, so I can cut it up into bite-sized pieces. And for anybody who's watching, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat, because we will get to them afterwards. All right, so here we have pumpkin, sweet potato, and gold potato. Taking an onion, I'm going to chop it up into chunks. Of course, this you do peel. So you get the onion skin off, and you can cut it up into any kind of chunks that you like. I'm just cutting it in thirds, and then, well, half, and then in thirds, and thirds again. So here's half, and thirds, and thirds. Just a rule Not really, just you do it the way you want it. But we got it chunky in there. And now my beet, I've got on a piece of paper towel since I didn't want to get the beetroot juice all over my countertop. And so I'm also cutting that into chunkies. And I cut the greens off, which have already been roasted. It's interesting when you look at food, how much food we waste. So I hate waste. So I've taken the beet greens, and of course I look for the really good ones, the fresh ones, of course, at the either the farmer's market, or I get the organic beans and beets, at my grocery store. And you take the beet greens and put them into on a cookie pan. And I usually drizzle them with olive oil and salt, sometimes a little garlic. And they go right into the oven, just like spinach would or any other green like that. And they're roasted and they're absolutely delicious. Now, I'm going to chop up my broccoli, but I'm going to wait a little bit on the broccoli. And it's the crown basically, but I'm going to cut it up into bite-sized pieces. And I'm going to wait a little bit until, say about 20 minutes through the cooking, because this it bakes for about 35 minutes. So I'm going to give it a little bit of time to do the other veggies, which are much harder. And since broccoli really doesn't need a lot of cooking, it will roast. I'm going to roast it a little less time than the rest of the veggies. So we've got all this ready to put in. And now we're about to make the sauce for the veggies, which really is what makes them yummy. And also keeps them moist and delicious, potentially, in the oven. So there's my broccoli. And, well, I could put it in the cup if I could find it. All right. And this calls for, I'm using avocado oil because I don't want olive oil is a little too strong a taste. I do have olive oil in my baking pan. So I'm going to take 3 tablespoons of avocado oil. And you can mix this up in a separate mixing bowl or measuring cup if you desire. But I'm just going to put everything right in the bowl, which makes it a lot easier. So there's my avocado oil. And I'm going to put in, I think, a teaspoon each of allspice, cloves, and I'm going to put in a half teaspoon of salt, pepper, cloves, and allspice. Okay, here we go. Half teaspoon. And of course, if you like the flavor of some of these spices a little bit more than others, then add a bit more. That's where I believe that a recipe such as this, you have control over it, and it's up to you, whatever your favorite things are. That was the allspice. Now here are the cloves. They're ground cloves. And I love the flavor of the cloves, and so does my fiance. So we're going to put at least a half teaspoon in there of that. And then I'm going to take some black pepper, or today I'm going to use white pepper. And I'm just going to sprinkle that. It's usually a quarter teaspoon. I'm just going to sprinkle it all over. And now I'm going to take my salt. And we get about a half teaspoon of kosher salt or coarse salt. Okay, and I like a little bit more of that in there. So we've got all of those goodies in there, and now I'm going to start mixing. So then we mix the oil and we coat all the vegetables with our spices. And make sure you get to the bottom so you coat all of them evenly and keep going. And now I'm going to add, this is what really brings out the flavors. And if you've ever made lamb, you've probably used this. It's one of my favorite things. It's balsamic vinegar. And we're going to add 2 tablespoons of the balsamic vinegar. And this is a thickened balsamic. It's more like a glaze. So it's actually perfect for this recipe. It's 1 and 2. There we go. Oops. I hate messy jars. And if you so desire, we have honey, and we can put in, it calls for 1 to 2 tablespoons, but I love balsamic. I'm just going to put about ½ of a tablespoon in there of the honey. This is raw, wonderful local honey, just to give it a teeny bit of flavor. And honey is very powerful when you put it into a recipe, especially something with vinegar. If you make a, let's say, a vinaigrette dressing and it turns out to be a little bit too vinegary, if you put in just a 1/4 teaspoon sometimes of honey, that will completely change the flavor. So now I'm going to mix this up. Oh, it's beautiful. So I've got everything in here with my veggies, except for the broccoli. And actually, I'm going to toss half of the broccoli in and toss it with this, because then it'll get covered with the sauce. And it's kind of an experiment on my part today, because I did do it, the recipe before, and I'll show you how they all come out. And as I said, broccoli really doesn't need to be roasted as much as the other vegetables do. And by the way, I just read something the other day that was very interesting about pumpkin, since I was searching for pumpkin in another source. That pumpkin is actually considered a fruit because it has seeds. And of course, once you clean the pumpkin out, what do you do with the seeds? I'll show you in a minute. Just want to make sure we have this thoroughly coated. Then I'm going to take my baking pan, which is covered in foil, aluminum foil, or aluminium, as Simon would have said. And I'm going to spread the veggies out evenly on this. My oven is preheated to 375, and I'm not sure what that equates to in the UK. It's probably a medium-high oven. And just spread them out so that they're pretty evenly spread out. And this is I think it's a 10 by 14 inch baking sheet, a rimmed baking sheet, which is absolutely, pardon me, perfect for this. Okay, here we go. That's what they look like before they cook. And we'll put them in the middle rack of the oven. And then put the timer on. You can't really overcook them. And what I'm going to do now is take the rest of the broccoli and run it around the inside of the bowl and pick up what's left over, some of the sauce, so that it's ready to put in about 20 minutes. So we'll have that. And actually, I'm going to set my timer for 20 minutes so I know to flip the vegetables over a little bit and add the broccoli, the second half of the broccoli. In the meantime, I forgot something. Darn, one of my favorite things. Guess what? Garlic. So I'm going to chop the garlic up and mince it. You can use a garlic press if you desire, but I happen to like the bigger chunks. And if you can get it as small as possible by mincing it this way, I think the flavor's better and you get all of it. How could I have forgotten that? As I said, one of my favorite things is the garlic. And now it's going to be interesting because it'll roast a little bit differently than it did yesterday when it was mixed in with all the vegetables. I'm going to take them out and sprinkle it on top so that we have it included in the flavors. All righty. Put that in my little dish. actually, especially on wood, you should use the back of the knife. Just break things up and pick them up rather than the blades, so you don't pick up any little pieces of wood. I think Simon did mention that on one of the shows, and that is very true. So there we go. I'm going to every little piece of the garlic. Okay. And since that oven has been heating, let me see if I can turn around. You can see what I'm doing. Oven. So I'll pull out my pan, which is hot, and take my garlic and just sprinkle. There we go. So if you forget something, you can always add it. And you'll find this way the garlic will roast separately, and you'll see little pieces of garlic that are browned beautifully. Okay. I might just give that a bit of a mix. There we go. Okay. So now I can put it back in the oven. And on we go. All right. There we go. Sometimes things like that happen. And so what I'd like to show you is my pretty flowers. I don't know if you can see them. There we go. And we'll wait about 20 minutes for that to get done. But in the meantime, here's a bowl of what they look like when they are finished. It's absolutely beautiful and delicious. And last night we had it accompanied some fresh cod that I cooked simply with a little bit of lemon pepper and some olive oil. And then we had this, and actually I had the vegetables and they were cooled down at room temperature. You can serve them hot, you can serve them at room temperature, but they're absolutely wonderful because they're moist and everything gets done beautifully, even the pumpkin with the skin on. Remember, everything has the skins or the peels on them, and it's absolutely a delicious accompaniment to almost anything. It'd be great with turkey, it'd be great with any other kind of fowl, with actually Cornish hens would be lovely with it. And if you want to, you can chop it up a little finer. It also works really well, very interestingly, with cold, cooled, homemade cranberry sauce. Those are two nice accompaniments. So you have fruits, vegetables, and your protein. And as I said, what you do with the seeds, once you take them out from the pumpkin, these have been roasted and they're seasoned quite a bit with some herbs. They got to be a wee bit over roasted, but they're crunchy and yummy, and they make great nibbles. They're very great, especially for men, because pumpkin seeds are great for the prostate. And so we have a good snack for people to just grab and nibble on. So, are there any questions, Dr. Jacalyn?
Ricki, that was such a great presentation. I'm actually going to make that with Cornish hens. I'm so glad that you mentioned that about the hens.
Yum. Yep. And it's quick.
It is very quick.
Yeah.
And by the way, I love the tip about offsetting the vinegar with the honey.
Mm-hmm.
That was a new learning. And also the fact that a pumpkin is actually a fruit.
Yes. And interestingly, if anybody's interested, because I know there are people out there who want to know about what's in a pumpkin and why is it valuable. It contains 2 grams. This is a cup of pumpkin. 2 grams of protein, only 12 grams of carbohydrates, but they're good carbohydrates. They're complex. Fiber, vitamin A, tons of it. Vitamin C, potassium, copper, manganese, vitamin B2, which is, I don't remember, thiamine, I think. Vitamin E, and iron. So this is one of the reasons that I'm going to advocate for having pumpkin all year round, as well as other squashes. It really is a delicious fruit, vegetable, that really gives us a lot of nutrition as well as great taste and versatility. So thank
And
you.
the color just makes you feel good. It's so cheerful.
It's beautiful on a plate, yes, and then with the cranberry sauce next to it and your little Cornish hen, perfect. And I would combine that with either my favorite Viognier or possibly a chilled Pinot Grigio. I think it would go great with that.
Good tips. And also the fact that you mentioned about pumpkin seeds being good for men to offset any prostate. Yep. Yeah. So many men end up with prostate cancer. It's really sad. So
no cancers, please. If there's anything that I believe with all of my heart and soul, it is that food is the basis for prevention of illness, and it is the basis for just incredibly good health. And our choices of food, that's why my company is actually called Choose Health Solutions. One of the solutions on which I do focus continuously, obviously, is food. Not only being a foodie, and I really believe that we should choose the foods that we love, and there are ways to make them healthful. There's like a good recipe, a better recipe, and a really healthful recipe with some of the ingredients that you love. There's always a way to make something really good. The only exception, I'd say, is something like Twinkies. There's nothing there that's nutritionally wonderful. But,
darn it.
Sorry. And when you're making the traditional, one of my son's favorite meal at Thanksgiving was always, still is, mashed sweet potatoes with the marshmallows on top. And of course, the marshmallows are pure sugar, but that's okay. It's a holiday and it's okay. And you have to make sure that you get them in there and brown them just so before they flambe. You don't want flambéed marshmallows on top of your sweet potatoes. But and it's a lot of fun. I think cooking should be fun, and that's why I enjoy doing this. And thank you.
And it's also wonderful that you are a certified nutritionist because you bring a completely different perspective to cooking. So it's not only fun, but it's also healthy.
Yep. And there's no reason why people have to go, ooh, what do I eat? I don't even know the number of vegetables that are available in this world. There are times when I go to an Oriental market and there are vegetables that I have no idea what they are. But I know they have to be good because there's a lot of Orientals walking around buying them. And I find different things that I try. And if you haven't tried pumpkin in a this type of a recipe, please do. It makes life a lot more interesting, and the tastes are so much fun. And do it with your children, because children's eating habits are established by the time they're 2. And if you feed them, cereals and hot dogs and hamburgers and there's good stuff for there too. But if you're just limiting them to that, let them try lobster. Let them try, other things that you would try. My grandson, when he was 5, we were in a seafood restaurant, and he asked me if they had octopus. Obviously, that comes from the sea. And since he was born in France and raised in France, because my daughter's in France, I said, I don't know, Max, but we'll have to ask. But we ended up with calamari, and he was 5.
Wow.
And, children will eat whatever you will eat if you introduce it to them as yummy. They may not like it at first, but cultivate their palates for something more than salt and sugar. There's a lot more out there. So.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Actually, I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and she is over in the UK, and she had been over here in the States and found it very difficult to find any food that she could eat that was healthy because everything is covered in sugar and salt. So she went directly to the grocery store, to the organic vegetables and fruit section, and that's where she went every day to get the food that she was eating. So I don't even know if we realize it as Americans how much is in the food that we buy in the stores. We don't need it.
Well, when I do food tours, which I do literally through grocery stores, we start on the outside aisle because that's usually where the outside has the fresh foods, whether it's the bakery or the cheeses or the meats, the fish. It's all on the outside. All the stuff that's packaged is in the middle and on the aisles, where unless you need a condiment such as mustard or mayonnaise, which you can make your own mayonnaise as well. But I avoid the inside as much as possible. And I teach people how to choose the foods from the outside. And specifically, they're with EWG, Environmental Works Group. It's ewg.org. I suggest people go to that site to look at what vegetables are being grown organically, and they're really fresh and good and not overly loaded or loaded at all with pesticides and herbicides, because we don't want those inside of us. EWG usually has their Dirty Dozen, and now it's Dirty Dozen Plus, and their Clean 15 lists, which will give you an idea of what to buy and focus on. And this is what's in my book, You Can Eat Well and Eat Right. Talking to the vegetables such as strawberries, apples, and spinach. Those three you definitely want to buy, especially if you're in the United States, as organic, because they are highly sprayed with all of that stuff that you do not want in your system. So that's one of the things that I recommend. It's worth going to that website because they have a lot of very good information on foods. And also, since your skin is the largest organ of your body, what you use on it as far as creams and soaps and so forth, and especially your face, you want to put things on it that are not harmful. You want to do things that are helpful to your skin, because whatever you put on your skin gets absorbed into your system. So.
Thank you, Ricki. I just was posting ewg.org, and also Chef Ricki tip, fresh food can usually be found inside along the perimeter of the grocery store.
Outside. The outside. I recommend rollerblades. Get on the outside.
Okay, perfect. Well, I meant the perimeter of the grocery store. So a question I have for you, you just alluded to this. What is the correct way to clean your fruit and vegetables? Can you take your ivory soap and just start cleaning?
Well, you could, but I don't think you want to eat that. What I do normally is I buy a veggie, here's my veggie wash, and I spray the vegetables and put them all in the sink, and I spray the vegetables with this and let it sit for a few minutes, and then I just put in water and let it sit, excuse me, in the water with the veggie wash. That's one way to do it. It's preferable to using something like dish detergent, which is very strong, especially if it's a fruit or vegetable that will absorb anything in the soap. If you have nothing else, if you don't have a specific veggie wash, and all the stores carry them now, most of them can be diluted, then it's better than nothing. But for the most part, that's what I use. And then there are some gloves that you can get, scrubby gloves, that you can use for washing with things like apples and bananas and so forth. Here, just to give you an idea. In the fruit bowl, everything gets washed before it goes in there. If I don't wash it and I want it to last a wee bit longer, in case it's got some kind of coating on it, even though I buy organic, I will put it in the refrigerator. And even things like avocados that have obviously peels that we're not going to eat, those are also washed, because anytime you put a knife in through a peel, that knife is going to carry whatever is on the skin or the peel into the fruit or vegetable. So you want, pardon me, you want to make sure that you wash the outsides as well. Excuse me, I need a cup of tea.
And Ricki, thank you. That was a really good share. Something else I just wanted to ask you about. I know you mentioned this at the beginning of the show, but for folks who are just tuning in now, obviously pumpkins have a lot of really good health benefits, a lot of reasons to buy pumpkin year round. What's the best way to prepare the pumpkin? You said to leave the skin on, but can you just go through that for folks who might now be excited to go out and start pumpkin shopping on a regular basis?
The problem in the U.S. is you can shop for the pumpkins, but you will not find them. Interestingly enough, I called Whole Foods, Sprouts, HEB, and Rice, 4 of the big grocers in Houston, yesterday because I was out shopping. None of them had any pumpkin left. They either tossed it out because they'd had it there since October, probably, or people don't buy it anymore. So this is a problem in the United States, and maybe we can start a pumpkin campaign or something. We'll push for pumpkin all year round. Other than that, I buy organic cans of organic pumpkin, and you can put pumpkin in a smoothie. Actually, day before yesterday, Richard is an oatmeal man. In the mornings, he loves his oatmeal, and usually he'll put some berries and fruits in the bottom and make his oatmeal, just plain old, good old-fashioned oatmeal. Well, I took it in the pot, and I took a big dollop of pumpkin, canned pumpkin, not pie pumpkin, pumpkin pie mix. No, just plain pumpkin. And I put a big dollop of that. It was probably about half a cup. And I mixed it in with the oatmeal. And then I added a little bit of cooked quinoa and put that in and mixed it up a little bit. And I added some cinnamon, cumin, and a little bit of honey. So the oatmeal turned out to be very, very interesting, and he loved it because it's out of the ordinary, just using the pumpkin alone in there. And you can mix pumpkin into things like mashed cauliflower, a can of pumpkin, and as I say, in any smoothies. Haven't tried it with potatoes, but there's no reason why it wouldn't taste good. But I think I make mashed cauliflower quite a bit, so I could add a little pumpkin to that and spice it up like you would normally.
That sounds great. I love that idea. And while we're on the subject of pumpkin, when I think of the color of the pumpkin, I also think of sweet potatoes. And I'm wondering if they also have a lot of nutritional value that equates to the pumpkin.
Yeah, they do. Sometimes even more. And this is one of the reasons I suggest scrub, don't peel, even if it's a tough outer scrub. How many of us have gone into a restaurant and ordered potato skins, stuffed potato skins? And I'm the weirdo that eats the skin as well as the stuffing. Most people just eat the stuffing out of the potato. And that's regular potatoes, but sweet potatoes are absolutely fabulous. And one of the ways I found to make them that everybody really loves is I'll take my sweet potato and then I'll get a big one or a couple of them, and they go a long way this way. And I cut them into strips so they look like fries, and I don't fry them. I bake them in the oven. Actually, I have a foodie, which is a little like a small cooking oven. It's back there. And I put them in the foodie and I sprinkle them with olive oil and garlic, or I'll sprinkle them with avocado oil and some cinnamon to change the flavor. And you bake them at 375 for about, I think 10 to 12 minutes, depending on how many are in there, and shake them up, turn them over, and they're absolutely delicious. You put them in for a couple more minutes and it crisps the outside and the insides are soft, and you have fried, but not sweet potatoes, which are absolutely wonderful.
It sounds delicious. And by the way, I'm with you. When I was eating potato skins, because I haven't been to a restaurant where they have them in so long, I would eat the skin as well because it's. Last question, when I'm thinking about things with color, what about turmeric? Is it okay to throw that into the dishes whenever you want because it's supposed to have so many good health benefits?
Well, yeah. One of the things I'd suggest in that area, turmeric is wonderful. That can go in the oatmeal as well. You use cumin and turmeric. It's like a curried oatmeal. And anything such as quinoa or rice or barley, any grain in that area, of course, quinoa is not a grain, it's a flour, but it substitutes for rice. Anything like that, think of what the flavor is that you're putting into the vegetable or on a meat or fish before you put your turmeric in. A little goes a long way, especially if it's the ground turmeric. Now, I've used the fresh as well, and you can saute it or grate it into something like you would ginger, and it works beautifully with ginger. And ginger is another thing you can toss into your oatmeal. Not focusing on oatmeal, but in something like that. People don't think of things like that. I also toss in an egg, which adds the protein and the fat to the carbohydrates in the oatmeal and extends your energy, because you want the protein and fat in there to slow down the usage of the carbs, which are sugar. And so that extends the energy life of whatever it is you're eating. So the turmeric, think of what you're going to put it in with, mostly vegetables, and on some things like lamb, with onions and lamb. We'll try it that way.
I love all these tips because I used to eat oatmeal all the time and I stopped eating it because it was so boring. And now, who knew there were all these wonderful things you can do with oatmeal. So thank you to you and to Richard for these creative ideas.
And even something like frozen berries, which is what we use, we'll get a whole big box of blueberries and strawberries, and then I'll wash them all, dry them carefully, and then freeze them. And they're in a bag so that we can just take them, put them in the bottom of the bowl and plop your warm oatmeal on top, and then mix it up.
Genius. I'm going to go in the refrigerator and do that now with some of the berries and split it in half. That's wonderful. So, Ricki, as we close out, I would really like for you to share with our audience how they can work with you on a one-on-one basis if they're interested in their nutrition and they want to live a healthier life. Do you do that type of work now?
I do. Actually, I'm a certified coach as well. I'm a certified dream builder coach, which it's a life coaching. The phone number is on there. It's 970-618-7607. And please, if I don't answer the phone, because as you know, we get so many of these robocalls, please leave a message. I do check my messages there. And Ricki'sKitchen.net. The email should be up now. It's Ricki@Ricki'sKitchen.net. Those are two great ways to get in touch with me, or just Ricki@RickiMchealthy.com. But the phone is either text, and if you text me, please put in United Kitchens or UK, something that indicates where you're coming from, where you saw it, so that I go through my emails, I go through my texts and my messages every day, and I will just happily return your call, because I do the one-on-one coaching with regard to nutrition, perhaps some health challenges that you might be having. But basically, we're going to work with food, because that's what really makes the difference in a person's life. So thank you.
Thank you. Outstanding. I appreciate that. And Ricki, I know at the beginning of the show, you had talked about how you're looking for potential collaborations with chefs. And so if you could just let people know if they're interested, maybe they are a renowned chef or a baker, and they're interested. What are you looking for from someone to collaborate with you?
I think just someone who's as wacky as I am and enjoys cooking. Just lovely, interesting people who have good ideas about nutrition, who have some training perhaps in nutrition and in cooking. I'm not actually trained as a chef, but I've had so many years of this, and I do study a lot of different things concerned with cooking and chefing and knife using and so forth. So someone who is equally as interested in cooking and can share it from their heart. I think that's more important than anything, and that is able to understand that people want to learn and just enjoy food. The enjoyment of food is universal. It keeps us together. And no matter where you are in the world, if you're a human being or any sort of animal, you do have to eat. So someone who is really, as I said, working from their heart, and we can work things out. Just to join, as we did with Simon, and he did his own recipes and I did my own recipes, and it gives everybody a variety, and it also gives them a different background and basis from which to work. So I think that would be fun.
And if they specialize in high calorie, unnutritious food, is that okay?
I have to tell you, excuse me, I've got to take this out and put the broccoli in.
Okay.
So I will speak while I'm doing that. Actually, for Thanksgiving, we visited with some friends and I was asked to bring dessert. So what I brought was a pie. It was a pumpkin pie made with canned pumpkin, but I also used homemade whipped cream and cream cheese in it. And it had a graham cracker crust. So high calorie and whatever, just as long as it's something that uses good food, I'm happy to work with them. And I'm not a dessert specialist, but that turned out really good.
I'm so sad, Ricki, because I love to cook, I love to bake, and I haven't baked anything since the beginning of the pandemic. And because I don't eat sugar, so now I don't really bake anything because everything I like is loaded with sugar. But you bake things that are not. So
No, but also you're in the area of sugar substitutes. I've never been a fan of stevia, but it can be used in baking, and you use much less. However, I found monk fruit and something called swerve, which really, I find the monk fruit is really good. I use it in muffins and in my baking. It's MONK fruit. And it's a granular monk fruit. It almost looks like a light brown sugar. And it works.
Oh, you find it in the baking aisle?
You'll find it in the baking aisle, and also look where they have the protein powders and things like that in that area that has protein powders in the bars and so forth, where people are looking for substitutes, for healthier substitutes. But I find monk fruit and swerve and sometimes stevia. I don't care for it myself. Monk fruit doesn't have a back taste. So the muffins that I make and the cupcakes that I make, they all come out tasting really good.
Yummy. Another great tip. Thank you, Ricki. I'm excited to make the Cornish hens with this wonderful dish of yours, and then all these wonderful tips that you've given. So thank you again. Mm-hmm. We will be back again next week. And Ricki, I know we're doing a special broadcast I think it's on a Monday at the last week of the month. Is that right?
I believe it's the 20th, Monday the 20th. Yes. And I was going to do something with pumpkin if I can find some fresh pumpkins. Otherwise, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing. It's going to be a surprise.
Good. We love surprises here on USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. So
yes, and I'm sure it'll be good.
I only wish I could be there to taste it myself because I'm loving what you're doing.
Well, thank you. And if I can ship it overnight, I'm going to do that. We'll ship it FedEx overnight or whatever in a refrigerator so it gets there. But thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching and being here. And happy holidays to you. And hope we'll see you on the 20th or before.
All right. Sounds very good. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We're having some alarms tested. So we're going to... Yeah, it's over here. ADT is here. So, all right, I'm going to close out the show. Thank you. Ricki's contact information is there, and please do reach out. Bye, everyone. We'll be back shortly.